Welcome to Sensual Vitality TV. I am your host,
Dr. Andrea Pennington, broadcasting from the house of Marilicious on the French Riviera. And with me is Marie Fiorin. She is a stylist, a jewelry designer, fashion blogger, radio personality, and the author of How to Be Delicious.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah, baby.
I'm so excited to have you here, and
thank you.
We have great tips to share with you guys, so this is just so great what you're doing, helping women.
Our mission is to empower women all over the world to live orgasmically with sensual vitality. So what does that mean? It means allowing your senses to be all turned on so that you are bubbling and tingling with this vital energy throughout your whole day. It doesn't have to be just reserved for sexy time at night. We want you to imagine the possibility of connecting with your sensual self and embracing your sensuality so that you are fully alive. And wouldn't it be awesome if we could all just walk around naturally turned on instead of waiting for someone to turn us on?
That would be dangerous, though.
No, all things with a bit of moderation.
Oh my God. No, but it's nice. I completely understand that sometimes, as women, men are visual. They just need to see sexy and bam, they're on. We need a little bit more.
Yeah, we need some warming up, and I think that the challenge is that we women can multitask and we compartmentalize. And sadly, at least what I've seen with my clients, is a lot of us will put sex out of our mind, put our sensuality out of our mind, so that we don't want to be perceived as flirting at work, or we don't want to be perceived as too sexy because we want to be seen for being competent and strong. And I think that backfires for women. When we shut down our sensual side and our feminine side, then we're not connected to it. And then by the time we get home at night,
it's like another thing on the list, to-do list.
Exactly.
And that's bad thing, because sharing an intimate moment with your lover is actually the most spiritual and fulfilling experience that you kind of have.
We don't want it to become a chore. We don't want to turn off from what makes us a vital human being.
Absolutely.
So we're asking you to open your eyes and open your mind to the possibility of living as a sensual being and being able to bring more intimacy into your relationship, so that yes, your sensuality and sexuality can be a spiritual experience, because we are spiritual beings. Absolutely. And all of this energy is meant to bring us that sort of bliss consciousness.
And we are living a physical experience, so let's get physical, let's get to it. And this is what I love with the movement that you have created, the sensual vitality movement, is that it brings us closer to our true nature.
Yes.
And it gives us all the tricks and the tips to really go from regular mortals to really the pure, delicious goddesses that we are, because it's amazing to be a woman. Like, let's face it, we have to regain that power. Let's put some lipstick on and just have fun with it. We have to play with it. It's not a chore to get ready in the morning. It's not a chore to feel sexy for your man. It's not a chore to do so many things. It's just the pure essence of being a woman.
Yes, it is. And that's our goal here. So in the words of Runa Magnus, the chief erotic officer of Sensual Vitality, she says that everything you need to live orgasmically is right in front of your tits.
Yeah.
So tits.
The girls play an important role.
Exactly. Tits stands for the tricks, insights, tips, and stories. So we are going to be giving you interviews and stories and things to help you reclaim that sense of vitality. Now, Marie, as a stylist, you kind of shocked me.
Oh my God. What is you going to say now?
Well, no, because, most people they don't criticize me when they first meet me.
Oh, come on, I didn't criticize. You don't listen to her. She's gorgeous.
No, but one of the things you said to me is, look, Andrea, we get it. You're a mom. You want to be comfortable, but you really need to be dressing for the whole day, not just putting on special outfits for special events or when you're on TV. And let's talk about it, because
I'm saying it like I mean it, and it's, you know, it always comes from a place of love.
Right.
But yes, I mean, I have to be honest, and my goal is for you and you to be your most beautiful self. So of course, yes, you're a mom. You have things to do, like gazillion things to do every day. We all do, but we still, like, it's not gonna take less time if you are in your sweats rather than if you're in a nice cutesy jumpsuit. You have two legs, it's still gonna be one leg at a time.
You're right.
It doesn't change. It's not a matter of time, it's a matter of will, basically.
Yeah. And that was a big thing that made a big difference for me, is just taking that conscious moment and saying, okay, I am going to put on better clothes than just my sweats and maybe a little bit of lip gloss. Because it transforms the way we feel. It taps into that feminine energy.
Because it's all about energy. Completely. Like, it's true that we always say and think that, you know, what you feel is going to become a reality. Mm-hmm. So what you feel on the inside is going to be true on the outside. Yeah. And I 100% totally agree with that. Yet, how do you feel good on the inside if you don't like what you see in the mirror? Yeah. If you don't feel good in your body, like, it's gonna backfire. You're not gonna achieve anything. It has to. Sometimes you have to fake it until you can make it.
Yeah.
It's. I always take the reverse approach. It's first the outside in order to have the effect on the inside, and then once you have the effect on the inside, you're gonna shine through.
Yes. Yes. And you're a master at that. You walk around just oozing deliciousness.
That's my alter ego.
Yeah, and
that's Marilicious.
Let's talk about that, the Marilicious alter ego.
Yeah.
So you say that all women can be delicious.
Absolutely.
And for you, you've actually given your delicious alter ego a name. It's Marilicious.
Yes.
So talk to me about that.
It's, it was a nickname, actually, that was given to me back at the... you remember the Fergalicious song?
Of course.
And people started, instead of saying Fergalicious, they started saying Marilicious, and it stick with me. And when I wasn't really good at one point of my life, she came back, and she actually really helped me to get out, and just to, you know, I wasn't feeling good. I had gained a little bit of weight, and I wasn't really happy, and actually applying what she says on the blog really helps the Marie, you know, that just want to hide behind the hair and everything. It helped me get out of my comfort zone, and she's the showgirl that I secretly always dreamed of being. And I'm applying this concept with my followers, with my clients, with you guys, because I really feel that as I was bullied as a child, as a teenager, so, you know, all of that, it's like piling up.
Yeah.
And you need sometimes, it's like the Beyonce with the Sasha Fierce, you know, when she steps into on the stage, she becomes this alter ego, and I do the same when I have, you know, I have to bring my A game. When you style someone, when you like celebrities on red carpets, like, you have to bring it on. And actually I've seen the transformation and how my personal life then flourished from that. And I think it's amazing. It's all about getting it going.
Yeah.
Really.
So let's talk about ways that we can get it going for the ladies. So it's true, many of us do carry these memories from childhood, whether it's being bullied or being teased when we went through that awkward, at least I did, an awkward adolescence.
We all have.
But we've got to get reconnected to the sense of us that is perfect and beautiful. No matter what size or shape we are currently,
Absolutely.
She's still inside of us. Now, one of the things that I found surprising when I moved to the French Riviera and going to events in Monte Carlo, it was like this whole concept of lingerie. lingerie coming out of the bedroom and becoming a day look. So let's talk about that.
It is true. Okay, we have to rewind a little bit. We are on the French Riviera.
Yes.
And it's true that whether Parisian girls or Saint-Tropez vibes, France is really the country of free the nipple. Free the nipple, really. And we play with bras or without the bra, and it's no big deal for us. And for me, as a fashion stylist, I've always seen lingerie and bra, or bra straps as an accessory to the look. It really becomes part of the total look, and details matter. The same way you're gonna be careful, choosing your purse or your shoes. You choose your underwear accordingly. Of course, be careful. It doesn't have to be all the time super sexy. When you're on the red carpet, when you're wearing, that amazing cocktail dress,
no,
or you're wearing
the tiny little thongs and the Spanx, you don't like to see any lines or anything.
You need this, and white trousers, you need Spanx. We're talking about sexy lingerie here, I understand.
Yeah.
But
you're talking about the everyday look. So for an everyday look, even if we're at the office, there's this concept of peekaboo. It's like allowing the bra straps or the little lace cups to show, or these little lacy camisoles.
It has to be done tastefully, but it's true that the lingerie wearing inside or out is really part of a fashion trend. And if we go back a little bit with the history of fashion, we started with, we ditched the corsets like a century ago. Thank God, because no one could breathe. It was just a disaster. It wasn't healthy.
It was very feminine.
It was extremely feminine, but
too extreme.
Too extreme. And yet the corsets, they stayed first in the S&M industry.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was really part of the erotica. Then it moved into, the pin-up style and the burlesque. And then fashion designers, you have like Vivienne Westwood or Jean-Paul Gaultier with like the iconic Madonna
pointy boobs,
bra, or with Vivienne Westwood with all the corsets. Lingerie and that kind of aesthetic came back on the catwalks and in our everyday lives. And now we really see lots of lacy dresses, or we play with sheer, so you see you don't see, because it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be showing everything. Right. You have to be, it's more like playing. It's there, it's not there. It's more the suggestion of it. Because we don't want to be like...
We're not trying to make you vulgar or, Right. So what you're really talking about, for me, what it sounds like is it's this bringing a level of consciousness to the way we put ourselves together. Whether it's seen, whether we're comfortable with the peekaboo or not, it's a matter of just knowing that we're going to adorn this beautiful feminine body that we've been given with, our cute little skivvies.
Absolutely. And if you want to try the sexy lingerie effect without, doing it on the outside, there's plenty of ways to do it. And underneath your pantsuit, you can be wearing this hot ensemble. No one knows it. You don't have to sit, no one, it doesn't show, but you know it. And this is actually going to have this inside feeling that we were talking, before. And it's going to start sparking this, I'm a goddess. I'm wearing sexy lingerie.
Exactly.
No one knows it. And it's also this kind of secret thing that becomes very empowering.
Yes. And that's what it's all about. That's what this revolution is about. It's about helping women reconnect to that femininity, own the fact that you are a beautiful, divine goddess, and carry that energy and that awareness throughout your entire day so that everything can be a sensual experience. From the way you eat that croissant or standing in line at the grocery store, allow your senses to be turned on again. Allow yourself to actually carry yourself knowing that whether it's under those layers or not, you are this sensual being. And it's about claiming this for your own pleasure. I think what you bring up with the lingerie is most women think that they're wearing the lingerie for their partner.
They don't care. They're going to rip that thing off of you.
That's always been my thing. It's like they don't even appreciate it. It's like there and then gone.
Yeah.
But if we wear it for ourselves, tell me about it. But if we wear it for ourselves, we get to get the pleasure.
Yeah.
And carry that pleasure forward so that it's got us bubbling and overflowing with sensual energy. So I would love to hear from the people in our Sensual Vitality entourage. You can join us online at sensualvitality.tv. But it would be wonderful to connect with you there. Also with us on the show today is the wonderful Dr. Michael Dow. Dr. Mike is the co-host of the television show Sex with Brody. He is also the New York Times, really sexy, fun show. And Dr. Mike is also the New York Times bestselling author of The Brain Fog Fix. And we are going to be taking questions. So I'm excited to dig in.
Me too.
Michael, we have some questions from the mailbag. How about you start with one of our mailbag questions?
Sure, fantastic. So we have Brett from New York. Brett wants to know why he's having trouble, it sounds like he has trouble achieving and maintaining erection with his girlfriend, but he never had this problem with one-night stands. Is this normal? This is, Andrea, this is actually a really great question because, this is one of those really common topics that I hear about in my office all the time. And I think it's something, from my point of view, and I think you and I both have a perspective on this from, both the behavioral and the medical point of view. Brett in New York, when you start to put your needs for sexual arousal onto that dopamine-releasing newness of a one-night stand, there's a couple of things that are going on here. First, there's a classical conditioning where you have learned to pair a response in your genitals, blood flowing to the genitals and maintaining and achieving erection, to the excitement of a sort of adrenaline and dopamine-fueled one-night stand. Now, if that happens once in a while, that may not be a problem, but for a lot of men who maybe are even classified as sex addicts, when you do that over the course of a year, 2 years, 5 years, you're actually training your body to only respond in that sexual way when there's no emotion involved. And then all of a sudden, when you have that emotion, your body doesn't really know what to do with it. And, of course, it's scary and it's anxiety-provoking. And I don't know of anything, worse for an erection than anxiety, right? And I think, Dr. Andrea, would you say that this is probably more a male-oriented question than female in terms of what you've seen in your office?
Absolutely. I would definitely say that women will have their own type of performance anxiety, and it may not be about the erection for a woman, but there is a certain anxiety and pressure, mental pressure that can build up that can start to interrupt the whole female sexual response. And so for a woman, it might be that she's having a difficult time achieving orgasm. So there is that difference.
Well, and the other difference is, just to state the obvious, men can't fake it. Women can fake it because obviously you can see if a man doesn't have an erection, but women can fake an orgasm. She can't fake lubrication and that kind of stuff. But there's certainly a little bit more faking going on. I would say that the other thing that women do that, I think there are two things. One, women tend to be more emotionally focused, whereas men tend to be more physically focused. And the other thing here that we should learn from women, which I have to say I think is the fairer sex, is that men tend to be very genital and orgasm focused, whereas women tend to enjoy the journey a little bit more and tend to be a little non-genital specific or focused. And I think that actually, ironically, helps men to achieve orgasm if they can think like a woman. What was that Steve Harvey book? Act like a... We were just talking about it.
Act like a lady and think like a man.
And I think that applies. I think, men, you have to act like a man, but, when it comes to sex, learn a little bit from women because women do it right most of the time when it comes to this topic, and women don't experience this problem nearly as much as men. This is, in the thousands of couples I've worked with, this is usually the man's problem 9 times out of 10.
Well, I will say this, though, for women, there's something, and this is true sometimes for men as well, there's something about the excitement of a one-night stand or, in the early phase of a relationship when people are hooking up and having sex, that women can be excited faster. So they may find that they're getting wet faster, that they achieve orgasm faster. And then as things get serious, or there's more, this emotional pressure, like, oh, what does this relationship mean? What does the sex mean now? That, the female sexual response gets all twisted up.
Yep. Maybe in our culture, we've done it a little backwards. It used to be emotion first, sex later. And I think that was probably the way the body was meant to learn the whole process. But now we've sort of reversed it a lot of the time. So we do sex first, emotion later. And, it's funny. I always tell the couples that I work with, problems in your life, often manifest themselves and sort of reflect in the bedroom. So eventually, if you have problems in a relationship, you're going to, the bedroom sort of mirrors that. If you have trust in your relationship, you'll have trust in the bedroom. If you have contempt in your relationship, you may have contempt in the bedroom, and selfishness and all the other stuff that goes along. And, and if we can sort of just follow the body's natural progression, I believe, despite what your, moral or religious beliefs of, waiting, what is that thing that you wait for? Is it marriage? Is it love? Is it, that you're in a committed relationship, or are one-night stands, okay with you? I think we need to ask ourselves, how can I teach not only my, my spirit and my heart, but how can I also teach my body to love in a way that's going to make me healthy, sexually healthy? And I don't know. I think if we were to go a little bit more in this direction, I'm certainly not conservative by any means. But, I don't know, Andrea, do you think that our culture has gone a little bit too crazy, that one-night stands are just the norm? I just read a study that less and less undergraduate college students are entering into relationships or even dating because men and women are much more engaging in one-night stands because it's like, why not? This is how I can get my sexual needs met. And, obviously there's some risk there in terms of pregnancy and STDs, but I think emotionally and spiritually we're also in some dangerous territory if that becomes your norm.
Well, yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I think, the sexual revolution is alive and well, and the hang-up that people once had about, having multiple lovers or having sex while they're, kind of just exploring the relationship, there's a lot less of the social stigma attached to it, to be honest.
Yep. I think, and it's funny when you sort of look at the history of our culture when it was sort of the free love in 60s where, and the swingers in the 60s and 70s, and then we had the 80s with AIDS and the sort of Reagan era, and then we sort of went way conservative, and now we're sort of coming back to that more liberal side in the 2000s. And I personally believe that somewhere in the middle there, it's not a black or white issue, it's sort of a gray issue. If we can be in the middle there, that's probably actually the best. I was just in New York, and one of the things that I've been reading in studies is that there are a lot of people that now, AIDS and HIV used to scare people in the 80s, but now people are so nonchalant about it. Teenagers and people in their young 20s, gay and straight, are increasingly thinking, oh, HIV, AIDS isn't a big deal. So when I was in New York, I couldn't help but notice there were all of these ads in public transportation, like down in the subway and buses, that were really reminding people that HIV is a big deal, that you shouldn't treat it as something that's, oh, well, who cares if I get it? Modern science can treat everything these days. And, I think that's evident that maybe people have gone too far in just sort of thinking, oh, whatever, it's modern science can deal with whatever. Well, we still have to do our part because prevention, whether we're talking about HIV, whether we're talking about cancer, prevention is always the best place to start. Then we'll treat what comes down the line.
I think it's a matter of we got a little bit of HIV fatigue. It's like it was so out there. There were concerts, there were benefits, everybody was talking about it. Superstars were going to, all these other countries and really raising the awareness. And there's a little bit of fatigue that happens in the psyche. And now people are like, people are living longer. They're not succumbing to the full-blown syndrome. But the Love Doctors here, we want you to enjoy your sexuality, but we want you to enjoy it responsibly. So, Michael, do you have something else from the mail bag?
So we have a good question from Allison. Allison is from Florida. She says that her and her husband have been married for 10 years, and their sex life is monotonous and boring. They're currently having sex, 1 to 2 times a week, but it's not exciting anymore. What are some ways that they can spice it up? So here's my tip to all of you married or, in a long-term relationship people out there. You got to find ways to make it exciting, and if sex is getting boring, if sex is getting monotonous, if you are engaging in, sort of a routine that has no surprise to it, you got to find some ways to spice it up. Think about ways that you can surprise your partner. Think about, anything from role play to doing it in a new location, whether it's, on your kitchen table. Surprise your partner with something romantic, a special date night, or surprise them at work. Do something to mix it up. I was working with this one couple, and they've been married, and they have kids, and they're very successful, and I just said, when's the last time you told your wife that her ass looks great today? And she sort of giggled, and I'm like, no, seriously, when? And he said, oh God, like 5 years ago. And I cut through their humor, and I said to the wife, I said, what would it feel like if your husband sent you a text that told you that your ass looked great today, or something sexy like that? She's like, honestly, I would be so happy, and he hasn't done that in 5 years. And she got tearful, and as much as she was laughing about it, when she was really honest with me, she really wanted that. And, a couple weeks later, they reported to me that they had sort of been sending sexy texts back and forth, like, flirting with each other and complimenting each other and just saying these tiny little compliments in their busy days, and their parents, so they have a lot of stuff to do. But I can't tell you what a difference that made in their marriage and also their sex life. So it can be something as simple as sending a sexy text. Dr. A, what do you have to say about this?
Well, I think that's it. I said this a number of times. If you're going to be in a long-term committed relationship, it requires not work, but focus and attention. And for women, we like to have ongoing attention. You can't take it for granted. And so spicing it up with a little text, with maybe a little note that we find, and just, I think for a woman, a compliment does go a long way. I think you're right about that. Playing games. I love seeing, at Valentine's Day, there's always all these card games and sex games in the bookstores, and I think that can add some spice, because otherwise you get into this habit and this pattern. So, mix it up. Do some role playing. I've said this before on the show, surprise your man at the door with, little to nothing on, and just jump his bones. Mix it up during the week by, sometimes giving him a quickie. It may not be your favorite thing, but spice it up, and you might find that he's a little more loving and attentive throughout the week.
Nothing wrong with a quickie now and then, as long as, let's also balance it with some foreplay-oriented long love making as well. Dr. Andrea, one of the most common questions I get is about porn, and couples who want to know, is it okay to use porn together? And, stereotypically, it's usually the man who says, I want to mix it up in the bedroom. I want us to use porn together. And half the time, the woman is offended by that, that it means that he's not attracted to her. But it is also, from my point of view, something that most men do look at. Most men do look at porn. But it's also, this is kind of a touchy subject, because porn and sex can be addictive behaviors. So,
right.
It's sort of like drugs or alcohol and sex. It's not a black or white answer. I always have to assess, with the person who wants to use porn in the bedroom, what does this mean to you? How many times a day or a week are you using it? And if it's something that's occasional and you just want to spice things up a little bit, and certainly, watching a video with some romantic fantasy is to start things off, it can be something to just mix up the variety, but I think it's also a very personal question. Have you had that question come up in your practice?
Yeah, I absolutely have. And in fact, I think we have a guest scheduled sometime in the next several weeks who's kind of an expert on your brain on porn. And I think, Dr. Mike, what you just brought up about the connection between porn and addiction is an important one. I learned from I think it was Charles in the chat room at one point, who said, you don't call it porn because there's so much negative energy attached to that. He said, call it adult material, or I like what you just used, something about sexual fantasy. But I like the idea of a couple coming together if they want to, if they're interested in just seeing some other schemes and then trying it out. I like that. But as you said, when I see people who engage in watching material on the internet or watching videos in the absence of their partner and it becomes habitual or excessive, then I find that sometimes they don't have the same sexual response in the bedroom with the partner.
That's when it's dangerous. I like that sort of quote, are you using something to feel better or are you using it to feel even better? And, if you're using porn to go from -10 to 0, as opposed to going from 0 to +10, in other words, if you're a couple who, like Dr. Andrea said, is using porn to, and it's lacking in the bedroom, and so you are therefore getting all of your sexual needs met in porn, then you are sort of self-medicating something that really the fulfilling answer is to, figure out how to have more fulfilling sex with your partner. If you're already having fulfilling sex with your partner and you just want to spice it up as just one of a variety of things that you could bring into the bedroom, then I think that that's a very different story, and that can be very healthy. Woo! Is it hot in here? I mean, we're talking about so many sexy questions.
I had another question come in, and this one is also from a woman. Her name is Lydia. And Lydia asks, what do I do? Help me. My boyfriend really wants me to perform oral sex, but every time I try to give him head, I gag, and I just don't like it. What can I do? Well, Lydia, I'm going to start, and then I know Dr. Mike might have some of the mental stuff. Don't you kind of wonder, Michael, with what people are thinking? Like, so what are you associating with oral sex? So if going down on a man is a mental issue as opposed to just, okay, you have a penis in your mouth and, of course, that might make you gag. That's one thing. But if it's just, oh, my God, the thought of performing this sex act is turning me off. Like, don't you wonder, like, is it physical or is it mental?
Yeah, and I think we have to assess that. It's very different if somebody has a trauma history, a sexual abuse history, and it's something psychological. We certainly need to assess that. If it is, or if it's sort of the psychological meaning that you have attached to oral sex, like, good girls don't go down on guys or something like that, if it's something learned. But if it is strictly physical, then, like any other physical act, like riding a bike, you can teach yourself to tolerate it, and, graded exposure therapy, it isn't just for conquering fears. It certainly works for things like that. So you want to sort of use baby steps to help yourself to do that. You don't want to go too far too fast. And, that applies in the bedroom as well, because what happens is when you try to say, oh, I'm just going to go for it tonight, and you overwhelm yourself, then you end up feeling overwhelmed and defeated, and then you just say, oh, well, I just can't do this at all. And you've actually taught yourself because you did not take baby steps. If this is a physical issue, and it is about gag response and reflex, then you can teach yourself with baby steps. Dr. Andrea, have you ever used medications here in terms of, like anxiety medications for some people here?
No. You know me, I'm holistic, and I really wouldn't prescribe medication just so a woman could give a great blowjob. But I, might turn her on to, there actually are lots of very good, it's not necessarily porn, but good DVDs that actually show women or men how to give a great blowjob. And I think if it's a matter of the gag reflex, she doesn't need to insert his penis all the way into the back of her throat. If it is, if we're talking about a physical issue and not a mental issue, like a mental aversion, she can always use her hand to be at the base of his penis and use her mouth and her tongue and her lips near the head and, start that way. And she can gradually work her way down. Unfortunately, Lydia didn't, in her email question, she didn't say if it was a mental thing. but she's saying help, so I'm assuming that she wants to do it. And I say, if you are willing to do it, then, do it in baby steps. Take a little bit in and practice some other techniques, and, there you go.
Well, and I think we should also take a play from the women's brain playbook here and not be so genital focused. So first of all, you can use your hands, you can use your mouth, you can use your tongue, not only on the shaft or the head of the penis, but also around the testicles and in a thigh. There are lots of great sensitive nerve endings there. And the most sensitive part of the man's penis is around his head. So if you can actually use your mouth to stimulate the head of the penis while using your hand to stimulate the shaft, there's actually more nerve endings and the most sensitive part at the head of the penis. So, you don't have to become, a porn star deep-throating your boyfriend or your husband's penis. You can actually learn to really appreciate it and savor it and not put so much pressure on yourself. I was working with a couple, and the psychiatrist that I was working with, was using, this is sort of it wasn't just related to, obviously, a gag reflex, but, this woman was actually depressed, and her lack of interest in sex and, anxiety around sex was actually a manifestation of depression, and also, change in sleep patterns, couldn't fall asleep, things like that. So, we also want to assess, and we also need to look at the bigger picture here and ask ourselves, what's really going on here? And usually, Dr. Andrea, I know you and I are really good at getting answers out of people, but usually I think on some level people know what the answer really is for themselves. We just give them the tools, or we ask the right questions to sort of unlock it for them.
Yeah, that's probably true. So my question is, do men get more of a psychological pleasure out of having the penis all the way in the mouth?
Well, I think it's a cultural conditioning, and I think it's a learned response. There are certain things that men have seen in adult films where the sexual woman is deep-throating, and even the way that she is going down on the man is this very sort of playboy bunny sex goddess kind of way. It's about the man's own need to feel wanted, and there's something about the woman's willingness to deep-throat his penis that says, you're really into me. And I think we can't discredit that as well, because, men may not show it as much, ladies, but men like to feel wanted just as much as women want to feel wanted. They just hide it a lot more.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And even, when we were talking about, this woman who emailed her question, when using the mouth to stimulate the head of the penis while using the hand to stimulate the shaft, there is a way that you can do that can be very sexy, and I think that is what the man wants. So even if you're not deep-throating your man, please look like you're into it, because there's nothing less sexy than, looking like you're about to choke or that you're not enjoying it. Because then, imagine all of the personalization that's going on inside, your partner's head. He's thinking, you don't want to do this, you don't like the size or shape or color or taste of my penis. And, all of these things are probably going on in his head, and service with a smile is probably needed here. And, because, it's about his ego, and it's about him needing to feel wanted as well.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, and I think that goes both ways. I mean, a woman doesn't want a man, going down on her and looking like he's about to gag. And, so yeah, it definitely goes both ways. Act like you're into it. Yeah.
And you got to be sensitive in the bedroom. If, for instance, if your partner is in need of a shower, I've certainly worked on this, and usually it doesn't come out in couples therapy. It comes out in individual therapy where, one of the partners says, there's sometimes a problem, it doesn't smell good down there. And, there are lots of ways to communicate it in a sensitive way. You can make showers really sexy. If you are not liking the way that your man is smelling down there, or the way your woman is smelling down there, and it's smelling a little funky, you can say in a very sexy way, baby, let's sort of get it started in the shower, as opposed to, a man going down and a woman saying, ooh, or it's sweaty, it's a little stanky down there. You have to learn, especially when it comes to sex, asking for what you want in a way that is not going to hurt your partner's feelings. And usually the best way to do that is focus on the positive, not the negative. So instead of saying, wow, babe, you smell really sweaty down there tonight, saying, wow, wouldn't it be fun if we took a shower together, or, instead of, if he is if he's always focusing just on your genitals and you want to be, touched on your ears and you want more foreplay, instead of saying, wow, babe, all you really care about is the orgasm, could you stop with that? Turn that around and ask for what you do want as opposed to criticizing what you don't want. So saying, wow, babe, remember that time when you did that? I really loved that, that time when we had, foreplay in that suite on the beach when we were staying in the hotel. And do you remember when you kissed my ear? Oh, you give me chills when you do that. And you start to develop a way of asking for what you want so as not to hurt your partner's feelings.
I like that. And I like, hygiene. You mentioned stanky. I think one of the things that's interesting is that men, sometimes after they've been out working out, they've been doing something physical, their testosterone is peaked, and they want to continue that physical activity, but now with a partner. And, I just want to say, guys out there, hygiene. If you want your woman to go down on you and act like she's enjoying it, you've got to keep your junk clean and tidy and dry. And I like your idea of just saying, ooh, honey, you know what would be really nice is just to take a nice hot shower together. Or, I think guys make the same complaint about women. Women, if they're having just gotten off of their period or their period's coming, the hormones change, and that changes their vaginal secretions. And certainly, if you're smelling something fishy, she might actually have a yeast infection. So hygiene. Ladies, you need to be seeing your gynecologist at least once a year so you can keep your stuff checked out.
Well, I have to tell you a funny story. I was talking to a physician last week, and I'm anti-artificial sweetener. I am, I believe that not only do they have some potential dangers attached to them, they actually are sort of calibrating your taste buds to prefer extremely sweet. I like a little stevia every now and then. I think that's a really good alternative. But this physician I was talking to said that he was treating this woman, and she came in with a yeast infection, and she's like, man, I can't figure out why I get so many yeast infections. And it turned out that it was her Splenda use. And when she cut out Splenda, she actually stopped getting so many yeast infections. And, there have been studies that show that Splenda decreases the good bacteria in your gut, which can sometimes lead to chronic or increased yeast infections in women. And the physician said that the woman, never used Splenda again. And I thought that was really funny that, an artificial sweetener can cause a yeast infection. And that was the thing that made the woman sort of give up all of her, her diet soda and her, using 8 yellow packets in her coffee and all that stuff.
Sugar, particularly for people who have high blood sugar, like with diabetes, recurring yeast infections is also a sign of type 2 diabetes. So it's one of those things that I ask female patients if they're saying that, I'm thirsty all the time, or, I'm peeing all the time, and, we check their urine for sugar, and I ask them, hey, are you having yeast infections all the time? Because that, too, is a sign that your blood sugar is out of whack. We have a question. What's up, 202? You are on with the Love Doctors. What's your question tonight?
Hello, this is Charles.
Hi, Charles. It's great to hear your voice again.
Welcome back, Charles.
Thank you. But I wanted to touch on something that you brought up earlier, and that was the bathing issue. And one thing, for me, I've gotten into more debates with this with women than men, actually. But I usually shower twice a day, just on the norm. And I've gotten into debates with women saying, well, gee, that's too much because you're washing away all the, the moisture from your skin, yada. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, isn't it more like for a cleansing type thing? Because one thing my ex-wife used to say is she, wanted to make sure that I was clean because what she might want to kiss at whatever time, during the night or whatever it is. So it's kind of like our joke back and forth. But I find it interesting, at least for me, and then maybe I'm just being a bit too, sometimes maybe I'm think I'm being a bit too anal. But, I mean, cleanliness is important to me. But it's funny how I've come across so many women who think that is kind of strange.
I'm one woman who doesn't think it's strange. I think it's beautiful and wonderful. And if you're worried about, drying out your skin, that's what lotion is for, and body oils. And I know men are not really into body lotion as much as women are. But, hey, guys, women, we like you to have smooth skin. There's nothing wrong with using a little bit of lotion after your shower.
No, I was just going to say you can incorporate that into the whole foreplay lovemaking processes, like you brought the example before about bathing together, taking a shower together. Then after you get out, then you can, massage together, put lotion on each other or whatever, kind of extend the whole process.
Absolutely. Rub in some oil, some massage. All of those things are great to really spice it up and to really get both people in the mood. So I love that. Make it part of your lovemaking.
Keep doing your thing. Trust me.
Keep showering.
Exactly. There will a woman will come along who will appreciate it, honey.
I agree. I think you're going to be in good shape, Charles. Thank you. Dr. Andrea, I think one really interesting point is that, a little bit of the way your body smells has been clinically shown, to attract people. So that whole pheromone thing, that's actually true. And, one really interesting fact is that birth control pills will actually turn and reverse your natural smell preferences. So women usually think that their husband smells good, that there is actually something that is about your husband's or your boyfriend's or your partner's immune system being different from yours, and if his immune system is different, which means that you would produce favorable offspring, he will smell good to you. Now, what happens when you take birth control studies show in neurochemical studies, you are actually reversing that. So if you are on birth control, you may notice that your husband smells bad. Also, during pregnancy, that smell preference will reverse. And people who are related to you will start to smell good. So what's really interesting about that is that they think that, from an evolutionary point of view, you smell, your potential mate and he smells good to you so that you produce offspring with him with a favorable, different immune systems. But then when you're pregnant, you actually want your family around you so that you're safe during your pregnancy, so the human body learns to reverse it during those 9 months of pregnancy, but then after pregnancy you go back to being attracted to your husband. And I think that's really fascinating scientific information.
I do too. I've always loved the whole neurochemistry and the pheromone effect of being in love and being attracted to people. And I do think it's amazing that the human body has just been made to keep going and going and going, and it's perfectly tuned. What's shocking to me is that there have been times that I've been around someone, and it hasn't happened a lot, but after I read, I think it was Dr. Pat Love's book about Truth About Love, where she really explains in a beautiful way exactly what you're talking about and how the brain reacts when it's in love. It's like being on drugs. But when she was talking about, the pheromone effect, I found it fascinating. And then I think it was last year, I met someone, and I was just drawn to him like, I don't know what. It was the strangest feeling, and I was like, I feel like I'm, drawn to him from across the room, and it was like, it wasn't entirely sexual. It was like I just wanted to, touch his arm. It was like, if I could just touch his arm, I'll feel good. It was amazing, the power, because so many people say, well, could you be in an arranged marriage? Could you just learn to love someone? And I think that works. I have friends from India who have been matched up, based on family and issues, and it works. But there's nothing like feeling just drawn to somebody.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there was a really interesting study that they had men sit in chairs in a waiting room, and then they had the men leave, and then they had women enter that waiting room, and women were more likely to sit in some of those chairs that the men sat in. So even though there was no physical smell, we do have those pheromones, and they're operating on an unconscious level. And yeah, sometimes we do have that animal magnetism that is drawing us to somebody. And another study showed that when they followed people that do have what you're talking about, Dr. Andrea, you're just so kind of attracted to something, and it's probably part of his smell. That if you were to marry that person, studies show that you are less likely to cheat and you are more likely to stay married if your smells are very compatible. Isn't that so interesting?
It is, because I definitely noticed that it was something beyond just he looked hot. It was something on a whole nother level that drew me to him. And I think there's something to be said for that. For people, I've just never been able to be one of those girls that can be attracted to a guy for superficial things, like, ooh, look what kind of car he drives, or, ooh, he's a big celebrity, or whatever. It's like, no, there's got to be something really deep if I'm going to be, that into him.
I think that's a good philosophy. I had a friend ask me, what happens then? The question remains, what happens if you're on birth control pills then? When you're selecting your partner, and that actually may be a little dangerous neurochemically speaking. So hopefully, you're gonna choose your mate when you're not on birth control, and then when you need to start using it, of course, that for some people's sexual lifestyles, it is safer to stay on birth control. So, but it does raise a very interesting question there.
Yeah, it does.
Especially for women who stay on birth control for, irregular periods or heavy cramping. Is it going to actually make you choose a partner that you're less compatible with? And, that's actually a valid question. And I don't think most physicians have talked about that with their patients who, are choosing to go on long-term birth control.
So thank you for listening and tuning in. Thank you to Dr. Mike, and for those of you who submitted questions. Thank you, Marie, for hosting us in the beautiful house of Marilicious. You can learn more about Marie and her goddess line of jewelry and her book at Marilicious.com. It's in the show notes, so be sure to check it out. If you did enjoy this show, we'd ask that you click that like button and share it with your friends. You can subscribe and get notified of new shows and free downloads and other free tips. Join us on Facebook or at sensualvitality.tv. We want you to join the revolution. Become a member of the Sensual Vitality entourage so that you can live orgasmically, right?
That sounds like a plan. Sign me up immediately.
Exactly. So, thanks again. Ciao.
Bye.